Can you imagine a world where the Montreal Canadiens and the Boston Bruins, two of the most storied and bitter rivals in all of sports, actually engage in a player trade? It feels almost sacrilegious, a breaking of an unwritten code that has defined this epic feud for over a century. Yet, in the relentless churn of the NHL, where strategic moves often trump historical animosity, such a scenario is not just possible, but, according to recent reports, actively being explored. Today, we're diving into a truly intriguing piece of news that could send shockwaves through both fan bases. The Montreal Canadiens are reportedly among the teams showing interest in Boston Bruins forward Pavel Zacha. This isn't just a rumor. It's a potential seismic shift in the landscape of the Atlantic Division, a move that could redefine the rivalry for years to come. An NHL source recently confirmed to RG Media that the Montreal Canadiens have indeed inquired about Pavel Zacha. The Canadiens definitely have interest in Zacha and have asked about him, but they're not the only team, the source revealed, adding that several other clubs, including the Calgary Flames, are also keeping a close eye on the Bruins forward. This immediately tells us a few things. First, Zacha is a player in demand, indicating his value across the league. Second, the Canadiens are serious about their ongoing search for a second-line center, a quest that has become a recurring theme for general manager Kent Hughes. But it's the third point, the sheer audacity of the Canadiens targeting a player from their fiercest rival, that truly captures imagination and ignites the conversation. The historical context here is crucial. While the Bruins and Canadiens did swap draft picks last June, a 2025 fifth-rounder for a 2025 third and fourth, a direct player trade involving an active NHL roster member between these two franchises is an incredibly rare occurrence. You have to go all the way back to February 21st, 2001, to find the last instance when defenseman Patrick Traverse was dealt from the Bruins to the Canadiens in exchange for defenseman Eric Weinrich. That's over 2 decades of avoiding direct player transactions, a testament to the deep-seated rivalry that often transcends typical hockey business. The very thought of Zacha, a current Bruin, potentially donning the Habs' iconic jersey, or a Canadiens prospect heading to Boston, is enough to send shivers down the spines of fans on both sides. It's a move that would not only address a roster need, but also add an unprecedented layer of intrigue to every future Canadiens-Bruins matchup. While a trade doesn't appear to be imminent at this very moment, the fact that different trade scenarios have already been discussed speaks volumes. The wheels are turning, even if slowly. The sources indicate that several Canadiens winger prospects, specifically Joshua Roy and Oliver Kapanen, along with defenseman Jayden Struble, are names that continue to surface in NHL trade discussions related to Montreal's pursuit of a second-line center. This gives us a glimpse into the potential assets the Canadiens might be willing to part with, though Hughes has consistently expressed a reluctance to move his young core. Interestingly, the name Jayden Struble has previously been linked to the Bruins. The rugged, left-shot defenseman, who recently turned 24, is expected to contend for a third-pairing spot on the Canadiens' blue line during training camp. Bruins amateur scouts will be intimately familiar with the Cumberland, Rhode Island native, having likely watched him extensively during his time patrolling the blue line for St. Sebastian's High School in Needham, Massachusetts, and subsequently at Northeastern University. This local connection and familiarity could make him a particularly attractive target for Boston. However, another source cautioned, "I know he's a guy they like, but it would take more than him to get Zacha." This suggests that if Struble is part of a package, it would need to be supplemented with other significant assets to entice the Bruins to part with Zacha. It's also important to understand the Bruins' perspective in all of this. Multiple sources have indicated throughout the offseason that the trade discussions surrounding Zacha are not being initiated by Boston general manager Don Sweeney. Instead, it's the interested teams like Montreal and Calgary who are making the calls. Donnie Sweeney isn't shopping him, one source clarified. That's just him doing his job and listening. I don't see this as something that would happen before American Thanksgiving. This suggests that the Bruins are not actively looking to move Zacha, but Sweeney is, as any good GM would, keeping his ear to the ground and listening to offers. The timing is also a critical factor. The source added, if the Bruins have another brutal start and the holiday trade freeze is approaching, well, then it might become a lot more than just listening, but that goes for other Bruins players too, not just Zacha. This implies that while Zacha isn't on the block now, a poor start to the season for Boston could change their calculus dramatically, potentially making him, and perhaps other players, available. For the Canadiens, the search for a second-line center remains a top priority, but Kent Hughes is not one to rush into a deal unless it's the absolute right fit. He's demonstrated a patient and methodical approach to the team's rebuild, prioritizing long-term success over short-term fixes. We've heard reports of their interest in other promising centers, such as the Ducks' Mason McTavish. However, as RG reported last week, the Ducks are still keen on signing McTavish long-term and are not yet willing to move him. This underscores the scarcity of top six centers on the trade market and the challenge Hughes faces. Crucially, Hughes and Executive Vice President of Hockey Operations Jeff Gorton are reportedly very reluctant to part with their young core prospects for any center, whether it's McTavish, Zacha, or anyone else. This commitment to their developing talent is a cornerstone of their rebuild strategy. However, there's a significant piece of the puzzle that ties directly into this potential Zacha pursuit: the recent trade of Carey Price. The Canadiens moved Price's substantial contract specifically to create cap flexibility, ensuring they would be in a position to strike if and when a viable top six center became available on the market. This strategic foresight means that if Pavel Zacha does become available, the Canadiens will not only be interested, but they will also have the financial means to be actively involved in those discussions. The Price trade wasn't just about shedding salary. It was about preparing for opportunities like this, a testament to the long-term vision of the Canadiens management. So where does this leave us? The Montreal Canadiens have a clear need for a second-line center, and Pavel Zacha, a skilled forward who can play both center and wing, fits the bill. The Bruins, while not actively shopping him, are listening, and a poor start to their season could make him available. The historical rivalry adds an incredible layer of drama, making any potential deal between these two teams a truly monumental event. The Canadiens have the cap space, thanks to the Price trade, and the prospects to make a compelling offer, but Hughes' reluctance to move his core means any deal would have to be carefully weighed. This isn't just a trade rumor. It's a fascinating chess match playing out between two of the NHL's most iconic franchises, with a player like Zacha potentially caught in the middle. The coming weeks and months will be crucial, and the outcome could reshape the Canadiens' lineup and the very nature of their rivalry with the Bruins. What are your thoughts on the Canadiens pursuing Pavel Zacha from the Boston Bruins? Do you think a trade between these two rivals is a good idea? And which Canadiens prospects would you be willing to part with to acquire him? Let us know your predictions and opinions in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into the Canadiens trade pursuits intriguing, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all the latest Habs news and analysis.